And now we get to the making of the supermodels. Cindy Crawford, Naomi Campbell. Guess what? Christy Turlington. These women would have been nothing without Anna Wintour. They would have been another face, another body on the runway. She chose them. She groomed them. She promoted them. This is 1990, which is another completely seminal year for her because that is the year that George Michael used these fashion models, the Freedom music video. Hey everybody, this is Diane Gilman, formerly known as the Queen of Jeans on QVC-HSN, but now the proud host of Fashion Thursdays with Diane. Well, ding dong, the Queen is dead. Long live the Queen. Who am I talking about? Must be Anna Wintour. This woman had a career that was so spectacular, so stellar, and at the same time, never got there through kindness or generosity. As a matter of fact, people that were closest to her named her Nuclear Wintour. I remember meeting her in 1981. And in the early 80s, there was also like the first made for TV movie, and it was about a Holocaust. People were dying of freezing to death and starving to death because the earth was covered by nuclear winter. And I thought, what a perfect title. So here's the nightmare story I have about Anna Wintour, who became everything for Vogue magazine, Condé Nast, married together entertainment, the music industry, to fashion, made every single proposition she touched a money-making miracle, and yet was known as one of the meanest women alive. I can attest to that. Look, not everybody is born with the same set of IQ, talent, drive, sociability, wherewithal. She had it, and she knew it. But it doesn't mean you have to beat other people up. It was very recognizable. So, 1981, Anna Wintour was working for New York Magazine, and she was a writer as well as a fashionista who had actually quit school at 16 years old to pursue fashion. My best friend, and also my landlord, I lived in the first cast iron building ever built in New York City. It was in Soho. He was an architect and a furniture designer. And he was designing her apartment. She was about to marry to a child psychiatrist. Yeah. And went on to have two children with him and then divorced him. He was throwing a dinner party for her, and it had been announced in the underground kind of that she was going to be going to Vogue magazine. She had been at Vogue UK. She had been at Harper's Bazaar and fired for doing a very controversial cover, pushing the envelope a little too far. She was out in New York Magazine and she was doing an article on Norma Kamali for fashion also. Norma Kamali was the girlfriend of the founder of Studio 54, one of the two, Ian Schrager. It was going to be obviously a very dishy, very interesting article that bordered the line between scandal, gossip, because the scandal had already happened at Studio 54. It was closed and reopened. He thought he was doing me a favor by sitting me next to her for this dinner party. People go around the table, introduce themselves. She's not there yet. She comes trouncing in. I'm sorry, my interview ran late. And the first thing I thought was, that is the thinnest human being I have ever seen. And I remember she was so thin. And I'm like fighting chubbiness all my life. She was wearing a belt about 6 inches high, giant buckle, and a super full skirt. And she still looked unbelievably skinny. She sits down. My friend, the architect, says, I'd like you to meet Diane Gilman. She's in fashion also. Anna Wintour never even moved her head 1 inch in my direction. She never said a word to me during the entire dinner. She never once acknowledged she was actually sitting to the right of another human being. It was as if I literally did not exist. Whoa. That was just about as icy as it gets. I met her a few years later at another dinner party, but that was a dinner party for like 100 people at the Italian embassy on Fifth Avenue. I would like to say that she knew she carried that title, Nuclear Winter, and she knew that it was about icing people out. Somebody brought it up to her at one point for a press piece they were writing, and she said, "Look, I'm not here," Condé Nast and Vogue, "to win a popularity contest. I'm here to make decisions, important decisions." And I thought, like hell you are. You need to tell people in the cruelest way you can that you are superior to them. Now, I've met a million celebrities, some on the way up, some on the way down, but at a certain point, most of them vectored into tele-retail, either QVC or HSN. And I've met self-protective celebrities, I've met angry celebrities, I've met disappointed celebrities, I've met exciting celebrities, but I never met anybody that treated me the way she did. And look, that was 45 years ago, and I still remember every excruciating moment of it. But the most powerful woman in fashion, and in her own way, kind of a late bloomer, because when she came to power at Condé Nast, she'd been working since she was 16. She was now 37 years old, and she became the creative director of Vogue in 1983. And then in 1988, she became the editor-in-chief. Rare moment of smiling. So when I talk about Anna Wintour and the fact that she didn't, I think, feel totally comfortable dressing herself, certainly not as creatively or as boldly or as much as she dressed other people. What about that bob haircut? Can I just ask you, what is your opinion of this? Do you believe that's her real hair after a certain point? Can you believe from until 2025, her hair never changed? Knowing her as personality, I can see where she had the confidence and the control to simply say, I'm not going to waste my time. This is the best hair for me. And that's something I'm going to keep all my life. Oh, I find that, in a way, very ungirly. We used to have debates at my salon. Endless. Was it her real hair or was it a wig? Or when was it her real hair? And when did it switch to being a wig? Because it didn't matter what kind of day she was out on. A humid day, a hot summer day, tropical at a great photo shoot. And it never got frizzy. And it never was out of place. And it was always perfectly positioned. Okay, my personal thoughts on this, there is nobody who has the same amount of hair at 50 or 55, 60, 65, 70, 75 that they had when they were 30, 35, 40. My personal feeling, that is a very, very good set of wigs she had. And the other thing that's sort of interesting is, and she kept it forever, and Anna Wintour definitely pushed a million fashion trends through designers and designer names, even though it was her ideas and her directives. The bob, the Anna Wintour bob, never caught on. That never became a national or international obsession, even though it looked good. It looked good with sunglasses. I see the point of wearing bangs because it hides all the lines in your forehead. But you know what? Other people didn't want it. They left it and gave it to her as her hair legacy. But I want to hear from you guys. Is that a wig, or is that actually her real hair that she kept dyed and colored? Ooh, there's a different photo. And identical from the time she walked into the international spotlight in 1980 and now has walked back in 2025. You cannot tell me that's real, but I'll tell you what, from having chemotherapy and having to wear a wig, and I thought I bought the best wig, it doesn't even trail how good this one is. So 1980, she did her first cover, and it was revolutionary. That was Christian Lacroix, who stopped designing a few years afterwards, but I loved that sweater. And it brought in a whole age of opulence and embellishment with unbelievable a pair of jeans. And more controversial yet, that was the first magazine cover ever with a pair of jeans on it. Now, previous to this 1998, 88, sorry, revolutionary cover, it had been, yeah, very bland, very perfect models. And it had also been socialized. So from 1960 through the mid 80s, it was all about women named Muffy and Bunny and yeah, just think about all those nicknames. Ha ha. And then 1989, revolutionary again. It was Madonna coming out of a swimming pool. So once again, a more naturalistic point of view towards the model. The hair is wet. She's not really in anything fashionable, but it's a true representation of summer. And there she is, an icon of social change. And Anna Wintour is recognizing that, recognizing the worth of it, grabbing a hold of it, and promoting it. And now we get to the making of the supermodels. Cindy Crawford, Naomi Campbell. Guess what? Christy Turlington. These women would have been nothing without Anna Wintour. They would have been another face, another body on the runway. She chose them. She groomed them. She promoted them. This is 1990, which is another completely seminal year for her because that is the year that George Michael used these fashion models, the Freedom music videos. This became also a recurrent theme that she actually ended her reign on in 2025, Anna Wintour, by marrying music and the music industry to the Met Gala and preservation of fashion with the last theme she did. She was a visionary. She was a powerhouse. And I will say, when somebody just asked one of her longest running assistants, what was the most important thing to Anna Wintour? The message was a dual message: power and control. And I will tell you something about her power. That was a woman who knew exactly who she was and what she was. She knew she was high IQ, exceptional. She knew she was superior. She knew she was persuasive and even diabolical. And she was labeled ruthless. And she knew she was destined for great things. And she was not going to let you or anybody else get in the way. I met her again years later at the first Met Gala she did, which was 1994. It wasn't that well formed yet. And previous to that, it was really all about being a socialite, giving charitable money to the Metropolitan Museum of New York, and having a social register name. And guess what? You could buy a chair and a table for $50. That was it. By the time Anna Wintour got done in 2025, record sum of $31 million in one evening for the Met Gala and her final Met Gala as the editor-in-chief. A seat was $50,000, and even that, because I was going to buy one year towards the end. I was told, you're not even guaranteed you'll be seated. We can't. We really only recognize people that buy a table, which starts, depending on the area it's in, at $350,000. And I know people that do buy those tables, but she made it into the international social event. Okay, so this is a good picture. Because when I met her again in 1994, you were standing on one side of a rope. You were the common people, but you were still there. That counted. And she would have a walker. That point, there was all kinds of wonky stuff going on with her marriage. She was not appearing in public with her husband. He was not a glamour boy. He was child psychiatrist, but well known, and very esoteric career and very intellectual. And she would walk the parameters of those gold cords that hold the common people from the benighted people. And she saw me and she gave me an imperial wave and a little head nod, and then smiled at me with a look that said everything, that said, "Don't you wish you were me instead of you?" I've got to tell you something. When somebody accomplishes as much as she does, and or we had a lot in common, the same career path. She quit school when she was 16. She felt there was no need to go on in regular education. It wasn't fashion. I quit school when I was 17 and a half. I wasn't going to stay at UCLA. How boring. They didn't even have one fashion class. And we went on to have very long, and her, obviously, much more exposed internationally, powerful, successful career. You wish you could look back together. And so when people ask me, what is my legacy? And I say, I want to help women. I want to have people remember me with a smile on their face and say I'm a kind person and I did some good for them. That is not her legacy. Her legacy was also one thing I don't think any of you may know, which is she was a kingmaker. I had this completely naive point of view that she went to all the fashion weeks, she's sitting in the front row, and she's picking and choosing what she thinks is going to work, is not going to work, is going to become hot. Ladies, there's nobody who treasures good skin more than me. As someone who's been on television for 30 years, always in front of a camera, and now as a podcaster, and I have to say that one of my major tricks to staying young with smooth skin is Sleep and Glow pillow. And you're saying, really, Diane? A pillow? Yeah. The way this is configured, your skin never, especially if you're a side sleeper like me, your skin never gets scrunched down and in. You never wake up with those overnight wrinkles, which eventually will go from temporary to permanent. It is comfortable. It sets your neck and your spine in the right configuration, but most of all, no more of those deep creases when you wake up and look in the mirror. It's like, whoa. So it is a game changer. And if your skin is aging, if you are in your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, like me, and you really want to slow down, that the visual hands of time, you need a Sleep and Glow pillow. And I'll tell you what, you're going to love it once you start using it, because great skin always starts when you sleep. So use my code below for a discount at sleepandglow.com and start sleeping smarter and start sleeping more beautiful. I do love that outfit. Yummy. I would like to be wearing that. But that's not how it played out. She gave control orders to most of the major fashion houses like Balmain, Balenciaga, Chloe. She told them what to design. And the basic premise was, if you're not going to take my advice and turn your creative juices on in this direction, you're not going to get a cover of Vogue this year. You're not going to get an inside editorial in Vogue this year. She was a woman who knew how to wield power. And although I never thought she totally understood how to dress herself, she understood how to dress others. And it came to a point where, just like me, again, if I had to draw parallels, I walked away from tele-retail because I saw the writing on the wall. The medium itself had aged out. It's cable TV. There's at least 10 to 15% less subscriptions year after year. And that meant less people watching my shows. And I'm getting older and older, and the hours are getting tougher and tougher. And I walked away, and I walked away with my head held high, my decision. People keep saying to me, Anna Wintour was fired. She was not fired. The medium, print, fashion, print, aged out. I haven't bought a magazine. I haven't bought a Vogue in 10 years, 12 years. I eventually only bought them because you're always so delayed at an airport. That was one thing you could do, leaf through a magazine. But magazines, and again, it was her star power for presenting fashion themes that worked, but also making money, record amounts of money. You would go and buy Vogue a decade ago. There's no content in it. It was three, if it was a spring edition or a fall winter edition, the big thick editions. That thickness was all ads. You would have 300 pages of brand ads from Michael Kors to Chanel and 50 pages of content. That's all you got. Pretty soon, that content was unfathomable. It wasn't anything you could wear. It wasn't anything that inspired or kicked off a major public obsession or a theme. And I must say, she's much better at dressing herself in evening wear than daytime wear, because we're going to show you a picture of her from Wimbledon yesterday. It's ridiculous looking. She looks like she's in some kind of cult where you have to cover yourself up from head to toe. And I have to say, 100-degree day, huge heat wave in the UK. So, but who's she sitting with? Nicole Kidman. I mean, she had absolutely no inhibitions about mingling with the best of the best and the stars. She was so rare in her talent, which was artistic and visual, her pure money making skills. Now, in 2017, she was kicked around pretty good in public for insensitive racial language within inner communications at Vogue and a racist work environment. Also, a completely thin, white, and rich, non inclusive work environment. Evidently, she never, and she gave strict commentary on this, wanted anyone hired to represent Vogue who was over a size 6. She finally caved in. Okay, you can hire someone who's size 8. But her hiring practices were notorious. And then two of her favorite workmates, photographers, Bruce Weber and Mario Testino, who did all the supermodels, were accused sexual allegations. I know with Bruce Weber, it got really ugly. And they were banned from Condé Nast for life. She was such a series of contradictions. She was tagged as racist. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I believe it was. They had the proof. And yet her closest fashion work companion was Andre Talley, who was African American. And she absolutely loved him. I also want to say, as a kingmaker, there he is in all his glory. He passed away, along with telling designers what to design, made Marc Jacobs, Alexander McQueen, and John Galliano, who was also actually had his career destroyed by making anti Semitic remarks in public. Look, here's the point. You don't have to be a saint. You don't have to be a Mother Teresa. You don't even need to be a good person to be a genius. And I'm going to say I think Anna Wintour and everything I knew about her and everything that brushed off on me with her when I met her several times said just that. She was unapologetically herself. Did you ever ask yourself in all the pictures you saw of Anna Wintour, the editor-in-chief of Vogue magazine, from the time she was 37 to the day she stepped down at 75, quite a run. Why the dark glasses? Cataracts? No. Glaucoma? No. Sensitivity to sun? Absolutely not. Distance, control, and power and distance. Those dark glasses were nothing less than a high wall. She never let anybody in. This was not about friendliness. This was about power and focus, containment. Yeah, we're not talking about a kumbaya moment here. That is for sure. And for I think almost 20 years until she stepped down now in 2025. She kept herself apart. She kept herself unemotional. She kept herself unattainable by wearing those giant dark glasses day and night, all the time. And tell me, is that a warm and fuzzy image? No. Can you imagine being questioned by her? And there she is with the Queen Mother. And she's got on those dark glasses. Wow. Wow. So you couldn't even get Queen Elizabeth next to her and have her take it off. Now, she is being awarded here, but there was also a picture of her, not sure we have it, of being knighted. There she is. And I ask you, you couldn't have picked a better outfit? I mean, that is so dowdy, so messy, so underwhelming. It's Alexander McQueen. I get it. It's English. She was born in England. And did she deserve to be knighted? Absolutely. That woman was brilliant. She mixed art and forward thinking and being a phenomenal moneymaker all in one. It'll be very difficult to fill her shoes. Although I do hope the next person that fills her shoes is a little nicer human being. But there she goes. And what's she wearing? Her dark glasses. Yep. It's all about isolating herself because, and she's right, she was truly a one of a kind. I will also say in admiration of her, not like of her, that she probably never wasted 1 nanosecond of her entire life, 24/7. It was all about getting somewhere, elevating herself, becoming impossible to replace by everybody around her, and setting historic standards. Bravo, Anna Wintour. And one thing, after being made to feel just about the lowest and most inconsequential human being on the planet by sitting next to her at a couple of dinner parties, was an incident that happened in 2024. So I believe it was a Balmain show. It could have been Balmain or Balenciaga. Anna Wintour went to a million of these shows, and she was very, very, very close to the head designer here. So she's sitting in the first row, naturally, and they're holding up the show, the entire show, because Kim Kardashian is late getting dressed. And there's the outfit. So that is a sapphire cross from part of a collection from Lady Diana that was auctioned off, and Kim's into buying, retro vintage jewels. So Kim has been using one form or another of weight loss drug, and she's very thin, and she's in a full-length satin evening gown in the middle of the day. You can see the sunlight streaming in, and this massive amount of diamond and sapphire jewelry. I swear to God, I saw the video. She sits down. She turns around and says something to Anna Wintour. Anna Wintour looks like she's going to be responding and friendly, and then stands up and says, "Well, I'll be going now." A direct jab to the Kardashian family, who, by the way, was banned from the Met Gala for years and years. I think they were only allowed into the Met Gala around 2022. The other dissy story, which I actually admire Anna Wintour for, I don't admire anybody for being as icy and as cold and as dismissive and, quite frankly, destructive to other people as she's been. And she is that way, and she's not apologetic about it. 2024, Vogue, which is also a service, a taste service to two brides to be. And they had gone after Melania Trump, who had the good sense to say yes, and had one of the senior editors as her shadow for a year before, all during the wedding, and a couple of years after, dressing her, advising her. Anna Wintour was driven crazy by Miss Sanchez, Lauren Sanchez, about to be Mrs. Bezos, had her staff call her up, set up a meeting. She came to the Vogue offices and she said, listen, you're going to be marrying the richest man in the world, as if Lauren Sanchez didn't know that. And we want to pivot your point of view, which is way too body conscious and always showing off these giant breasts that somehow magically keep getting bigger, and the lips and the filler. I mean, Vogue would do everything for you. They would choose your clothing. They would set up fittings. They would set up photography with the best photographers, but they would also direct you to the best hairstylists for extensions, to the best plastic surgeons for filler, skin injection, reshaping of your face. I mean, they were ready to do it all. I think that most women would have felt it was a pretty cautionary tale, and yeah, I'm going to go with it. Not Lauren Sanchez. After 4 hours of being continuously shown what Vogue interpreted as far better taste, far more palatable to the public, far more respectful way of covering your body, she stood up and said, I'm not changing. I hate what you've shown me. In a rare, heated public statement, Anna Wintour called the fashion press together and said, I tried to reshape Lauren Sanchez Bezos' fashion future, but you cannot do anything with a woman that doesn't just have bad taste. She has no taste. Now, you're thinking to yourself, okay, that was 2024. What is Mrs. Bezos doing on the cover of Vogue 2025? Well, first of all, it was digital only. And second of all, I believe that when that decision was made, it had already been discussed that Anna Wintour was stepping down. And they were looking for somebody who was going to take an aged out industry and find the pathway to rejuvenate it, which is fashion publishing in whatever iteration that might be. You don't have to love people you admire, but on the other hand, you don't have to take a bunch of nonsense from them either. Not the kindest woman alive, but definitely one of the most brilliant. Ding dong, the queen is dead. Long live the queen. Thank you so much for listening to Too Young to Be Old podcast. The episode may be over, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at The Diane Gilman, or visit our website, thedianegilman.com. If you like the show, leave us a rating or a review and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And until then, don't forget, age is just a number. Together, we'll prove that we are all too young to be old.